All right. So last time, let me actually share my screen. A second. So last time we were talking about some interesting implications to synthesis, how some of the things that you've learned in terms of wavetable are applicable for a synthesizer named Simpler. So I guess we could start out by just doing a little bit of review on that and exploring some of the other hidden features within that interface. So let me go to the instruments section, go to Simpler, right? We can actually open up a preset as well, but we're not really restricted in what we can do. Remember that an instrument track requires a MIDI input and it outputs audio. So the type of track that we would need for this simpler instrument would be, since it needs a MIDI input, it would be a MIDI track. So we'd have to go to Create, Insert, MIDI Track, and then we can drag the simpler onto the instrument, onto the track, right? So, you know, I could drag a variety of other things on. I could drag any sample I want. We're not restricted in what sample that we drag in. If we go to the samples folder, there's a lot of samples. You know, I could drag this sample over here. All of a sudden, turn on my keyboard, right? You can actually hear, actually play this particular sound. Right? I can take any sound I want. Let's see what this is. Okay, so this is all good and dandy. This is all fun stuff. So we know about, I guess what I want to clarify a little bit is between these different modes, between classic, one-shot, and slice, okay? Because we talked about a lot of the synthesizer components of the device. We didn't necessarily talk about like the main part of the interface, which is the fact that it's actually a sampling instrument. You take a sample and you could basically trigger MIDI. You could trigger it using MIDI. I like it. There you go. Okay. So in any event, yeah, that's a good candidate for something to be sampled. Okay. Okay, very good. Yeah, so there's a huge host of possibilities in terms of what we can actually sample. It's really a lot of fun. Let me actually go to the OneNote to show you some of the possibilities. So actually, let me leave this OneNote and go to this OneNote. Eventually, it's going to be one OneNote, I think. But so if we go to Instrument Devices and we go to Simpler, it should be here. There we go. There are three modes, right? Classic mode, which I guess I could add a picture really quickly. Right. Classic mode is this mode that's right here. That's illustrated by this section of the interface right here. That's classic mode. Oh, that's not what I was expecting. Insert. Why is that coming out like that? Color. Huh. Give me one moment while I figure this out. Okay. Right. Classic mode just concerns this part of the interface, right? And what happens is in classic mode, the sample only plays when you're holding down a key or a MIDI note, or when a MIDI note is being registered. So that's almost like a gate behavior. We haven't talked about gates, but we're going to start talking about compression. And those are threshold dependent processes, meaning the fact that this only plays when I'm holding down the note is like indicative that it's somewhat dependent on the, I guess not the volume per se, but the fact that I'm actually holding it down. It's related to that process. So if I actually hold it, if I hold down my finger, the sample plays. But if I let go, the sample stops playing, right? Whereas if I go to one-shot mode, if I press the sample, it plays throughout, it plays the entire sample. Like it doesn't like, you can almost think of classic mode as having an envelope attached to it, where like basically, as long as my finger is down, the sample is still going to be sustained. Like it's like the sustained section of the envelope is still being adhered to, right? But in one-shot mode, it's kind of the only thing that this instrument really registers in this mode is just like me pressing the sample once, and it just plays the sample throughout for the remainder of it, right? So those are two different modes, and actually, you could actually in one shot make this act in that way as well. You can actually in one shot mode, you can actually use gate. You could change from trigger to gate, and in this particular regard, you could actually cause one-shot mode to kind of behave like classic mode. But in some ways, this interface is a lot simpler than the classic mode, no pun intended. Because right here, you have, you can see you basically have a control over the loop length, the start, all kinds of other parameters that are not available in this particular mode. So, but I guess the one thing that really separates this apart is the fact that if you want to, you could actually play the sample all the way through in this particular mode by using trigger mode. If you use gate mode, it almost seems like it almost seems like, I don't know, the opposite of overkill, underkill. It almost seems like you're missing out on some of the possibilities that this mode offers you, right? So just to kind of wrap our head around the actual language of this, trigger just basically means when you hit the note, the sample triggers all the way through. Gate means basically as long as you are holding down the note, the gate opens and the sound comes through. Okay. But if you're not holding down the note, the gate closes and the sample stops playing. So when the gate's open, the sample plays. When the gate is closed, the sample stops playing, right? So in gate mode, you can kind of think about it as, yeah, kind of like this envelope kind of situation, right? So these two modes are pretty cool. One shot, right? Also, I guess a limitation of one shot mode is you don't have polyphony, which is interesting. So polyphony is the idea that, like, if I want to play a chord, I can't play three notes at the same time in this mode. Right? But in classic mode, you'll hear me actually be able to play chords. So keep that in mind. If you want, I mean, it's all, you use the right tool for the job. This is kind of, this one-shot mode is meant often. I think the most obvious use case for it is like just kind of, you need to trigger a sample, press the note, let go of it, you're done. If you accidentally press multiple notes, nothing happens, you don't hear a chord. You just literally want one sample to play all the way through, right? But perhaps the most interesting, excuse me, perhaps the most interesting mode of all is slice mode. Okay, my dogs are going crazy. They love slice mode. So in slice mode, what we have is basically the ability to actually take this sample and to actually, you can actually make many samples out of it. So I'll show you an example. Okay, so let's actually do a class recording like we did last time. So what I want you to do is I want various people to just chime in and to start saying things. This is our class recording. Now that I figured out that we can do this, I'm like very excited about this. So I'm going to go to make sure my input device is selected, Studio Live. Here we go. I'm going to go to channel bump up. Can someone speak from the audience? Okay, wonderful. Channel 3536. Okay. In fact, I bet you I could get away with just channel 35, but maybe we'll record stereo audio just for fun. Okay. All right, let's try this. I am going to record a little bit, and I want you to speak up. And let's say some random things. It doesn't have to be.
Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind.
I would disagree. It would be Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
No shot.
Wow. Any other comments? Any other? Come on, we need more stuff. This is great. This is great stuff so far.
I think Cocoa Puffs are pretty good.
Cereal isn't good at all.
Ooh,
Now you're starting something. Oh, that's not right.
all right. Well, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, we ended on a, on a teaching moment. You just can't, the last person informed the person that, cereal, you can't make fun of cereal. That's just not right. Cereal's delicious. I actually bought 2 bags of cereal yesterday. And so this conversation resonates with me. And I kind of wish I bought Apple Jacks and Cocoa Puffs and Cinnamon Toast Crunch and whatever else was mentioned. But I have to live with what I have. But this is a good reminder that I can always get more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this audio clip and I'm going to drag this audio clip into Simpler. Okay. And what you see on classic mode is what you'd expect.
Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind.
Right. You could just hear the sample starting, from the very beginning. It always starts from the very beginning. One shot also starts from the very beginning. But slice mode is interesting in that you can actually start from somewhere in the middle. So what this mode does is it actually allows you to take the sample and assign each of these little warp markers to coincide with a different MIDI note on your keyboard. So to easily demonstrate this, I'm just playing consecutive notes on my MIDI keyboard.
Apple Jacks is the best cereal.
You see what's going on? Basically, I'm playing different, like I'm playing, you might not be able to see what I'm doing, but I'm basically playing consecutive notes on my keyboard. Basically, to really drive this point home, I could do one of 2 things. I could first show you basically what I'm doing on the music theory side of things. I'm just literally playing each note in order on the piano, and that's coinciding with each sample that's basically flagged. Basically, the start point of the audio material corresponds to each consecutive MIDI note that I play on the piano. So that already is kind of interesting. To demonstrate this using MIDI, I could draw a staircase graph, because this is a MIDI track, and what I can do is something like this. I can do create, insert, empty MIDI clip, and I could do a little staircase graph. All right. Let's see. Will this play? Let me see. Okay, so
My mind.
I would disagree.
right,
It
and I'm just
would
playing
be
all the MIDI notes in order. So if I play this now,
Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind.
I would disagree. It would be Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
oh wait a second, did I switch modes by accident? Let me check. I might have accidentally changed modes on Simpler. That would actually alter the behavior. No, I didn't. Let's actually look at this and see what's happening as we trigger it.
Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind.
I would disagree. It would be
Right, but right now it's triggering the whole sample in this mode, right? So when the next sample starts, maybe if we want to get that choppy vocal thing that you hear in dubstep and all the music today, maybe as soon as someone else starts talking, the previous person stops talking, and we can use gate mode to do that.
Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind.
I would disagree.
That isn't exactly working the way I thought it was going to work. It's not working the way I thought it would work. For whatever reason. I was expecting the previous one to stop. It might actually have to do with the envelope. But let me do a little experimentation really quickly. So I'm going to go to the amplitude envelope, which is already, let's see, the pitch envelope. Wait. Something's not making sense right now to me. Huh. Let me take one look at this really quickly and see what's going on.
My mind. Jack.
Oh, it might be this.
Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind.
I would disagree. It would be cinnamon.
Oh, I know what's going on. We're hearing the original audio at the same time. So this is the actual record that this is us recording this. This is why, okay, it was playing the original sample. So we have to shut this track up. I'll just delete this. Now it was actually doing what we're expecting it to do. We were just hearing the other sample at the same time. Okay.
My mind.
You see how they all stop?
Would
But if we had it on trigger mode,
My mind.
it actually behaves somewhat similar, because the idea is on trigger mode in this particular idea, it basically will play, it only plays from one of the blue spots to the next blue spot. So if we have a blue spot, like let's say we actually delete all of these slices. I think there's a way to do that pretty easily. Reset slices. Is that a way to do it? You could double click each one of these things and get rid of them. So let's actually make our own, because this is Ableton's attempt to kind of separate the audio data. But what we can do instead is we can actually do it ourselves. So for instance, right, well, first of all, let's actually normalize this. This will reduce all the headroom. And this is going to be important when we're talking about compression. But this is going to reduce all the headroom in this particular clip. It's just going to make everything a little louder and more even keel, right? So now let's put the first warp marker right here. So now if someone plays this note.
Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind. Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind.
You see it's going to play all the way from here to here.
Apple Jacks is the best. Apple Jacks.
If I was on gate mode,
Apple
if I let
Jacks.
go of the note,
Apple
it
Jacks.
basically stops playing.
Apple Jacks is.
But if I'm on trigger, it'll play all the way from this marker all the way to this marker, right? So let's find some interesting stuff.
Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind.
Okay,
Apple
great.
Jacks is Apple Jack.
Oh wait, I gotta stop this. I gotta put on gate mode. Let's find another sample. So right here, okay, so obviously we want to hear I would disagree, not just I, unless we want to just hear
I would disagree. I would disagree.
Okay, let's get all the way to the very end. Let's get to the heart of this disagreement, shall we?
I would disagree.
Okay, very good. Right here, from here to here, that's great. Now let's find the next sample. I'm just deleting these transient markers. There's probably another way to do this, but I'm just randomly double clicking them, or I'm strategically double clicking them, but there's probably a way to clear them all at once.
I would disagree.
Oh, you disagree? No, I'm just kidding.
It would be
Okay, so right here, someone said a complete sentence, right? So we could have, let's see.
it would be cinnamon.
Okay, so then there's some static. Someone was like, basically, it's like the scene in Forrest Gump where someone, hijacks the microphone. They're like, no, you can't. Those are fighting words.
It would be cinnamon toast crunch.
Saying, no, you can't say that. Well, okay,
It would be cinnamon toast crunch.
Okay, very good. So we have that information. So we got a third sample right here. Let's look at the fourth sample right here.
No shot.
Okay, very good. Let's look at the next one. There's little blips and blops here and there. You could use those for percussion sounds or drum sounds or whatever you want, right? So the idea is you can actually sequence this idea little by little using this method, which is pretty cool, right? And then there's something else that's really cool. So once you do this, there's got to be a way. I'm just blanking on how to reset these slices, but there's got to be an easier way to delete all these without having to double click each one. But with that being said, if someone finds that, you can put it in the chat because I'm very curious. You find this is a cool way to investigate musical material. And you could work entirely within the simpler interface to kind of achieve this. So now if I create MIDI notes, right, I can actually extend how this sounds, right? So this one right here.
Apple
Okay, right here.
Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind. Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind. Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind.
I would disagree.
Right. You can kind of create these interesting sequences. Now, this is, I know you're probably thinking it's going to be hard to make a fire dubstep track with this with these sorts of samples, but I challenge you to do so. I think that serial could be a very interesting topic, and you could definitely, if you had a lot of time, if you spent enough time with this, you could make this sound really, really cool. Even this, I mean, I personally love this conversation. It's just not the typical kind of conversation you might hear in a dubstep track. But I think that that's music will accommodate any sort of type of thing that you throw at it. So this is really cool. Maybe I'll make it a challenge for myself to create a cool track, or maybe I'll make an extra credit assignment where you use this set of samples to kind of create something cool. With that being said, when you're actually over here in Simpler, you might like this workflow of actually working within Simpler, which is cool, but there's actually something else that's really neat that you can do. There's a relationship between Simpler and drum rack, and this is a whole topic. And basically, the idea behind this arrangement is that let's just first look at drum rack, okay? Because we've never really talked about drum rack in great length, okay? So if we go to drums and we go to drum rack and we drag a drum rack instance onto our project. At this point, everyone's worked with a drum rack. You see that there are a bunch of cells, right? But then look at what's on each cell. What do you notice what instrument do you notice is on each cell? It's a Simpler, right? So that's interesting already. So in fact, drum rack allows you to put any instrument for each of these cells. But the standard instrument to put on each of these cells by default is a Simpler device, right? Because this sort of sample instrument lends itself very nicely to playing back drum samples in this drum rack, right? So what if you could take, now this is just an idea, what if you can take the stuff that's in this interface and put it into a drum rack? So you could actually sculpt the volumes of each of these samples a little bit more. Like, let's say you like this, but it's kind of unfortunate that this sample is a little softer. Like this sample is a little too soft. There's nothing really you can do about it in this interface, right? Because we normalized all of these volumes as a whole, but this volume right here is still really soft. So you won't be able to hear it that well, right? So what if we can actually take all of this information and put it into a drum rack? And we can. So what we do is you right click and you click slice to drum track. So once you find the slices, this is kind of like, in some ways, you can think about this as an intermediate workflow to kind of like go through a sample, kind of segment the samples that you like. And then once you're kind of ready to commit, personally, I like working in a drum rack. So you can right click and you can click slice to drum rack. Okay. And let's see what happens when we do that. And when we do that, what you see basically are all the slices that we just created.
Apple Jacks is the best cereal. Changed my mind.
I would disagree.
Right. This is the I would disagree.
I would disagree.
Right. And this is the
It would be Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
all right. So you see that. So basically what we have now is more leverage to kind of issue different kind of properties on each of these samples. So for instance, I remember I told you about this one sample being really soft. Well, what we can do is we can look at the sample, we can right click and click normalize. And now the sample is loud. That's kind of a nice sample. We can also like, zoom in and kind of like get the start and stop time. We can really dial it in, right? So, you're not limited to doing this in this workflow that I just showed you. You can do this with existing drum racks, like this drum rack right here. You could go in and you could actually go in and be like, well, I want this drum hit to actually start over here, right? Instead of starting over here. Notice how in drum rack, all of these are one shots because actually there's no need to actually have like play chords with these particular drum sounds. We just basically want these drum sounds to register and play all the way through, which is why they have this trigger mode set, right? So what we can do now is we can actually create an interesting drum rack based on with our own samples. We can kind of mix and match, right? You don't have to use just the samples that we just recorded, but you could if you wanted to. For instance, you might find that there are more samples in here that meet the eye. So what we could do is, let's say
I would disagree.
Okay, let's say we have something.
It would be cinnamon. It would be cinnamon.
Let's say like that end of it.
It would be cinnamon.
Maybe you don't want to include the little noisy part right here. So it would be cinnamon.
It would be cinnamon.
Okay, let's get all the way up to the noise.
It would be cinnamon.
right? And then I think it gets really noisy, but we can get all the way up to that noise.
It would be cinnamon. It would be cinnamon.
Right? And you can make really small, you can make smaller samples. So for instance, I'm going to delete these other slices. And what's interesting is this is all done very efficiently by the computer. So actually each one of these slices has access to the entire sample as a whole. So if you zoom out, you could see that the entire sample is being referenced. The larger sample is being referenced, but only a small section of it is being windowed in this particular cell that we're looking at. So for instance, if we wanted to, I'm just going to delete these subsequent cells. I mean, you could work directly in here if I wanted to. We can avoid the whole, slice to MIDI track. We can work in the drum track, duplicate one of these slices, and kind of switch the region around. So for instance, right here, this slice right here is useless. I'm going to delete that slice. This slice right here is going to be Apple Jacks, right? This would be, I would disagree. Right, disagree. And then this right here would be,
It would be
cinnamon, right? Right. And then what we could have over here is we could duplicate this one. Let's say we want to just, instead of having it would be cinnamon, we just want to have it, or something like that. Well, we can duplicate this by option dragging or alt dragging. This is kind of a shortcut on Windows and Mac for most softwares. By clicking the item, holding down option or alt, and then dragging it, it'll create a duplicate for you. So I'll do that one more time so you can see that. If I click this, hold down option, and drag it, it basically duplicates it. So let's say instead of being cinnamon, I just want to call it it. Okay. So I'll zoom in, and it would be cinnamon, but maybe I just want this it. Or maybe maybe just the This is ew. Right. So we got ew right here. So this is an interesting process, right? We can go around. We can actually duplicate this again. We got ew right here. Right. This is so common in today's musical landscape, right? To kind of chop up vocals in this manner. Ableton makes this really easy. So you can go around. You can do this. This is this would be wood. And then right here, what do we have? We can duplicate this one more time. Whoops. Go back to the appropriate MIDI track. Duplicate this. Let's just do one more just for fun. Let's go to the very end. Some of these people are like, what about us? Over here. Let's check this out.
Stereo isn't good at all.
Oh no. I regret choosing that sample. That makes me sad hearing that. But we need drama on our music. So this is a very this is the kind of tension we need in our song. We need tension release. This is the most tense part of the song when someone says this. So right here, this is no good, right? So you get the idea. Maybe we'll do one more just for fun. And let's see, right here. Let's see what this is. I'm very curious now. What is this?
Now you're starting something. Oh, that's not right.
Okay, so maybe we'll make two of these. Now you're starting something. Right. Now starting. And then that's not right. Right. Okay, so we got that's not right.
Now you're starting.
Oh, wait a second. Did I do it backwards?
Oh, that's not right. Oh, that's not right.
Right. I mislabeled them. But in any event, maybe this is what we can do. We'll take 10 minutes for people to just explore the simpler concept, record something of your own and try to sample it, and just see what you come up with. You can create, you're not limited to in what kind of material you create. You could actually, what some people do actually is something like this. I can show you another example really quickly. I'll record myself really quickly. I'll just do this whole thing over again. I'll do something like this. I'll go like this. Whoops, didn't want to record that. I will show you, but channel 31, right? Record. right? So I'll take this, I'll put this into a simpler, right? I'm going to go to, because basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to think of mouth percussion sounds, right? So I'm going to go into my simpler. I'm going to create a new simpler right here. I'm going to drag these mouth percussion sounds in. And it's probably going to do a pretty good job of slicing this already. It kind of already knew based on the spacing. This is a little easier for it to work with. It actually did a pretty darn good job of finding these transients automatically, right? Whoops, right? You see that? So now if I slice this to a drum rack, well, first I'm going to normalize this. And now if I, that's weird. It's not, did I normalize everything? There's, oh, okay. This one is throwing off the normalization for everything else because it's so much louder. So I'll slice this to a drum rack. And let's see what happens here when I play this. I kind of want to normalize all of these samples, unfortunately. So I can just, whoa, well, that one is useless. This one right here is pretty good. This one right here, I'll make this louder because I can't do that sound very loudly. That sounds nice. Right? Normalize volumes. Go over here. That's me going. This right here is the bass drum. Normalize. It's not. Make this a little louder. Right? So you can create your own kind of your own stuff, right? If you recall what we had in our drums book, right? We had bass drum, we had snare drum, we had hi-hat, right? Those are the most important kind of components. So if you're actually thinking about the actual effects of, wait a second, where did I put that? It would be under, I thought it would be here. Would it be under music theory? I know I had a picture of a drum. Under resources? Drum patterns? No, where did I put this? Right here, right? So we have the bass drum and we have the snare drum, and we have the hi-hat. So what I'd like you to do is, you're not limited in what you choose to do, but you can see how you can kind of create an interesting sample pack by doing this. So I'm going to let's spend 10 minutes, just everyone kind of create their own thing, either by recording, preferably by recording themselves, right? So in order to record yourselves, just to recap, what you have to do is you have to create a new audio track, basically arm your track for recording with this red button right here, and then arm the global transport for recording, and then just record yourself in, right? And if you need clarification on that, just go to editing and recording. The very first slides basically discuss how you do that. So anyway, I will let you mess around with this for 10 minutes, and we will come back and kind of hear the results. And I will keep messing around with this in the meantime as well. And I'll mute myself so that I don't distract you. So I'm just going to pop in really quickly to say something. So what I did is I normalized all my volumes, and now I'm going to try to create a MIDI track, right? So I can actually create a MIDI drum loop. So, I can zoom in and create a little 4-bar loop or something, right? Or a smaller loop. It doesn't really matter. I'll create a loop, insert empty MIDI clip. You know the deal. But now that I've labeled all my sounds, hear my bass drum here, my my snap here, classic, right? So in any event, experiment with this idea and extrapolate it onto a MIDI as well if you can. All right, students, I want to see how you're all doing. Let's see. So let's get those videos back on as soon as you get a moment. And let's see what you've come up with. I guess while you're waiting, I can kind of show you what I did. My computer's actually like glitching out like crazy right now. I tried to record myself. I have this little drum pattern. I was trying to create a lot of variation. So this might be helpful to you. But I basically created this. Computer's totally glitching out. Let me change the buffer size on my preferences to be something really large. I don't know why it's glitching out this much. There's going to be considerable latency as you're listening. Going out with my computer. It does not like this for whatever reason. This might be an opportunity for me to freeze and flatten my track so that I can actually hear what's going on. If your computer's ever glitching out like this, one solution is to right-click the track, click freeze, and then flatten. This is so funny. I've never actually seen it. It might be because of the zoom. It's flatten this. This should make everything run a little bit more easily. When you freeze and flatten, it actually converts the MIDI to audio. I should actually, you know what I should do? I shouldn't flatten it. I should only freeze it, because freezing basically renders it out. If you're familiar with video editing, it like renders it so you don't have to actually process it in real time. So if I freeze it, I can't make any changes to it unless I unfreeze it. But for now, since I just want to listen to it, I've got something here. Let's see. So I've got this drum track. Let's see. I have a lot of these bass hits. I've got some bass hits over here, alternating my bass drums as much as I can. I've got I've got some hi-hats, which I call but I'm alternating the with some co's and so it's not always someone asked, how do you get the simpler to show up with the drum rack? I converted the sliced audio to a drum rack, but I don't have the controls over the slices and normalizing like you do for some reason. Maybe, can I actually see your screen? Do you want to share your screen? Perfect.
Sure.
Oh. Oh, okay. Okay, we actually have to have an in-depth conversation about drum rack to the whole class. What you got to do is you got to double click the slice. What that does, yeah, basically, if you look at the very left side of the window, you see how the fourth button down is yellow. If you basically, that opens up the actual device view that you could see. Yeah, so that's a great question. Hopefully that, yeah, we might, yeah, that's perfect. So, okay, awesome. So then after that, I guess you're, did it close earlier? But so you were just kind of playing it by ear to kind of hear how it sounded, but you couldn't adjust the volume of the samples because you couldn't see it.
Yeah, that's basically like I could sort of create a track, but I couldn't really adjust the volume or figure out how to rename each slice and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, how about this? Why don't I let you figure that out a little bit? I'll see if someone else has something in the meantime, and then we can come back to you. This is perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So let's see who's here. A lot of people shut off their videos. They're afraid that I'm going to call on them, but that just makes me want to call on you even more. So for instance, I see Carlos Campos just turn on his video. So Carlos, you want to show yours? Oh, you were eating. Okay, no worries. You can always, we always want to know what you're eating, especially if it's cereal, because that's very related to our class content at the moment. Oh, okay. Amy's. Is that Amy's little cheese things?
How'd you know?
It looked kind of small, and I remember being a big fan of those. So, yeah.
I'm not exactly finished. I'm still stuck.
Oh, you are? Okay. No problem. Let's see. How about Victor? Victor, do you have something you'd like to share? Maybe a lot of people are stuck. Maybe I should go over the drum rack.
I'm also still working on it because I was having some issues with like slicing them into a drum rack. So yeah.
Okay, for sure. Okay, perfect. Let's see, Brian Lynn. another regular. If you're still working, that's totally fine. I think I underestimated the difficulty of this. And actually, there are a lot of quirks to this that I could show you at some point. Let's see. All right. How are people doing? Anyone want to show what they're working on? Oh, anyone else unable to record audio? Track is armed. Input is selected. Don't know what I'm doing wrong. Track is armed. Can I take a look at your screen?
Yeah, let me share real quick.
Oh, perfect.
Let's see.
Okay. Should be able to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm recording over here in this audio track. Got it armed. If I pull up my preferences here, I'm just using built-in microphone.
Oh,
That should be the most straightforward one.
this is going to be an underwhelming answer, but I think what might fix this is restarting Ableton. I've seen this happen before because it looks like it should be correct, but you can already see that when you're, yeah, when you actually record, it just records a blank nothing, right?
Yeah, so I've shut down. I've totally quit out of Ableton twice now, and rebooted it, and it's the same story.
You know what? Let me see.
I could try it again. I just don't really know where to go.
Let's see. I'm gonna request. This might work. This might not work. Let's see.
Let's see, I gotta change some system preferences here.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, that's not too difficult, but if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Let's see. You have to enable Zoom under the under the security and preferences option. Just
Yeah, let's see. Okay, should be set now.
Oh, cool. Okay, so am I controlling it? Am I?
Yep.
Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. So yeah, this is the audio drop down. You go to preferences. Oh, can you share your whole desktop and not just Ableton, just to make sure that I got?
Yes.
Cool.
Let's see. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Okay, awesome. Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. Okay, perfect. I think actually I was maybe able to see what you were doing. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I see the preferences now. Built-in output. You're using core audio. Oh, audio input device, built-in microphone. You're using some sort of Bluetooth headset right now too?
Yeah. There's some issue with Ableton. Like I think it doesn't like the refresh rate of these headphones. So Ableton, I don't think will actually output to these or something like that. So I'm just using the built-in microphone and speakers on my laptop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Sometimes they interact in weird ways with the audio, making it difficult to actually. Huh. Yeah, I'm wondering if like just the fact that it's connected right now is throwing off this connectivity.
Yeah, I did try, like I left the Zoom call for a minute to see if maybe the Zoom was like pulling audio or something. I disconnected the headphones, restarted Ableton, like nothing helped.
Bizarre. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is well, audio in. I wonder, just out of curiosity, what would happen if we went and you chose this other microphone? Would nothing happen? Okay, it doesn't even allow you to do it. Well, what happens if you completely disconnect? Is this device plugged in right now?
Yeah, it's hooked up with Bluetooth. Yeah.
That might be throwing things off. Like, did you try? You
Okay.
tried disconnecting that altogether?
I did. I can try it again if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Bluetooth is
Okay.
always a weird.
So it should have defaulted to,
So the other one's gone now. Okay, built-in microphone. Try restarting Ableton now that you've done that.
okay.
Is that Paris?
Yeah, it is.
Nice. I just went there for the first time. It's beautiful.
Awesome.
Let's see. Okay. All right. Go to preferences, built-in. I mean, the only thing I can guess is if you restart your computer without that Bluetooth microphone. I've just, from historical precedents, I've seen other students have issues with Bluetooth. Like maybe if you restart, it'll work with the built-in microphone. I can't imagine why it's having this much difficulty. especially if you're on a Mac. It usually they work a little nicer with audio stuff.
Mhm.
Bluetooth can kind of throw a wrench in it. You're hearing audio come out, I'm sure.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. Like restarting without the Bluetooth headphone being connected. That's like the next thing I would test. But this is really stumping me. I really have never seen anything like this.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll have to give it a shot later today. I'm sure I'll be able to work it out.
Okay, if not, then you know like if you have like a USB a USB webcam or something like that microphone, usually those work pretty well usually.
Okay.
But yeah, just keep trying. I wish I could give you better advice, but
No, it's all good. Appreciate it.
of course. Okay, let's see. Will anyone else like to share? Stephen, Victor, Carlos, Brian. I see other people. Rebecca, Caitlin, Ashley. Anyone?
I have a little like tiny something that I can share if you want.
Yeah, love to hear it. Hey. Wow.
That's bad. Sorry about that.
I love that. That was really, can you walk us through like what you sampled?
So here was my actual sample. I just did a bunch of tiny little noises, like claps, and like pops. And then at the very end, I think I used my mug. I have a mug right here that I just tapped against. I don't just get different noises.
Yeah.
And then when she normalizes it all sound, it was like, because the mug tap was super quiet. That's what I was struggling with. Once I found out how to normalize it, it was much better.
That's really cool. I really like that mug tap. Like all of those sounds are really good. Do you have a background in like choral singing or?
No.
Those are expressive sounds. My goodness.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the cool rhythms too. Like very nicely syncopated. Yeah. This is awesome. Fantastic. Well, round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, how about Victor? I remember I checked in on Victor a moment ago. Would you like to share something?
It's okay. So I got the drum rack sort of set up, but I didn't have time to make a MIDI track. So I just pulled one off of like the online, I think. And yeah, oh, I don't think I shared audio. Yeah, this was kind of weird because I wasn't sure what exactly it would sound like. And like the first like 4 like bars was basically the same noises. And I thought I was kind of confused about it, but yeah, I just play it. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop it there because it repeats that like sort of bar like a lot, and I was kind of confused, like why is it like doing like that? I thought I did something wrong actually, but I think it was just the drum pattern I chose.
Wow. No, that's super cool. And actually AM in the chat said this sounds like partita for 8 voices. I've never actually heard that before. I thought it was very pleasant to listen to that. Like it just sounds very relaxing. It's like ASMR. It's like very like peaceful. It's like like the sounds are very nice. I always get ASMR with ADSR confused now that I teach synthesis. But in any event, it's it's really interesting. Maybe you could show that section that you were thinking would have sounded differently, and maybe we can diagnose what you mean by that. Like
I mean, it was just because this the drum pattern, it was basically a repeated, like this first part was repeating a lot. And I thought that there's something wrong with my audio track, but it wasn't. It was just kept repeating the same thing over and over again. But it just never skipped past that part.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, there's another thing that I failed to mention, which I made a OneNote slide for really quickly called choke groups, which basically you probably have all noticed as you're doing this, you can only hear one track at one time. Maybe you noticed that. You can never hear two sounds at the same time. That has to do with the choke group of the drum rack. So maybe I could show this to you on your screen. So if you go to the drum rack itself, the device, I should say, bottom right.
Oh, sorry.
No worries, no worries. And then what you want to do is, okay, you see how on the left-hand side of the drum rack, there's a bunch of buttons. Click the very bottom button, like that one right there. Now also click the IO. Okay. Oh no, there's no choke group. Okay, never mind. That's bizarre. I was expecting it to, okay, in any event, so you can hear multiple drum tracks at the same time. For my instance, all the choke section was all assigned to the same track, but it does sound cool. I was just wondering how that, because that MIDI looked really busy, and I was wondering if it was as busy as what I heard. Can we hear it again?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this is like, I think about a minute. I didn't realize how long it was until I just saw it. So yeah.
No, I love it. Actually, I've been studying some Indian drums lately. It kind of reminds me of that, like the ta taka taka ha ga. I don't know. It's very nice. I really like it. And the rhythms you chose the Latin rhythm. Okay, interesting. Yeah, this is great work. Well, let's give a round of applause. Really good stuff. Ta 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 ha. Let's see. Who else can we call on? Maybe what about Crystal, Rebecca, or Caitlin? Oh, AM added more context. It won a Pulitzer. Carolyn Shaw. Partita for 8 voices. Now I'm really curious. Okay, let's take a look at this really quickly. I'm very curious now. So I'm gonna go over to, I guess I'll share a few audio.
To the side.
To the side.
To the side. And around. Through the middle.
To the side.
To the side.
To the side. And around. Through the middle.
To the side.
To the side.
To the side.
To the side.
And around. And around. And around. And around. And around.
To the side. 2, 3, 4,
And
5.
across. 6, 7, 8.
Through the midpoint.
2,
the line
3,
drawn from the
4,
left side.
5,
And left
6,
and around. And around.
And around. And around.
And left and around. And around.
The square divided horizontally and vertically.
The wall is longer than divided into 4 equal parts.
Grand swing through.
Wow, this is really nice. I have to listen to this in its entirety. Yeah, that is very cool. Yeah, it does remind me of that, like the rhythmic interplay, the sonic interest of what you had. This is a great piece, and yeah, you're in good company, Victor. This is good stuff. Well, wonderful. Let's see. Who else wants to go? Does Carlos? Does Carlos want to go? Let's see. I called on some people. What about, does anyone, literally anyone has the opportunity to go? If no one wants to go, that's fine. I could actually show you some other peculiar, oh, we only have 3 minutes. AM said, Victor could be the next Pulitzer winner. Please remember us when you're famous. Yeah, I second that. Let's see. Okay. Well, maybe I could just show you some stuff for the last 3 minutes that I ran into. So one of the things that I ran into, for instance, is when I was actually, well, let me actually share my screen. Or no, my screen is shared. Let me let my computer unfreeze. Yeah, one of the things that I was running into was the idea that I actually wanted to use gating behavior instead of trigger behavior, so that because some of the samples overlapped with the other samples. So I actually went into the drum rack and I changed trigger mode to gate mode because I wanted a clean break between the start of one sample and the start of the next sample. Maybe if my computer stops freezing, I can show you that. I think it finally did as soon as I stopped sharing. Let me try again. Right. So right here, for instance, if I go over here to my actual beatbox, and I go to the sample interface, I have gate selected, which I could actually use classic mode as well to probably, it's just as fast. But that prevented, that kept everything cleanly separated. Like this particular percussive attack was separated from the other previous percussive attack instead of them playing and overlapping with each other. I wanted that kind of separate kind of sound. And this is what I mean by the choke group. And I actually created a OneNote slide about this. The idea is when you slice, all the drums might actually be part of the same choke group, right? And this might be desirable from one standpoint. What it means to be part of one choke group is that when one thing is playing, another thing can't play at the same time from that choke group, which might appear what I wanted when I was pressing that gate button. But the bad thing is you can't play multiple things at the same time if you have everything on the same choke group. You might wonder, well, what's a real life application for when you'd want things to be on the same choke group? Well, think about an open hi-hat and a closed hi-hat. Like if you have an open hi-hat and a closed hi-hat, it doesn't make realistic sense for them to happen at the same time. Like the drum itself has to be either open or closed. So to hear both sounds at the same time will create this weird effect of that's divorced from reality, for better or worse. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. So that's why if you look at a lot of default drum racks, like if I go to, let's say if I go to drums, and I actually can pull up the one that I already opened up over here. I think I had one, 64 pads. If I go to that section that I indicated on the OneNote where I click this and I click this, you will see that some of them are on the same choke group. Not all of them, but let me look for another drum rack. Maybe I'll look for something like the 808, right? I'll go to the 808, drag it over here. And then what you'll notice when I look into the choke group section is that they try to have the closed and open hi-hats on different choke groups, right? So the closed hi-hat is on the same choke group. The closed hi-hat is on the one choke group and the open hi-hat is on the one choke group. And that's so that you can't hear the open and closed sound at the same time. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to have this polyphony where I wanted many things playing at the same time. And I had all this MIDI and I was like, why can't I hear this simultaneity at the same time? It's because all of these were all in the same choke group. So what I had to do is I basically had to go to my settings for the audio rack itself, the drum rack itself, open up these settings and assign them all to be part of different choke groups. And actually I just noticed I forgot to put these as separate choke groups, right? And yeah, so anyway, I know we're out of time and I guess we're not meeting on Thursday because of a holiday. So with that being said, I guess we will see each other on Tuesday and then we'll start talking about compression, because we talked a lot about normalizing volumes and we're going to talk about compression and how we can kind of smoothen the sound of our tracks out with compression. And eventually we'll talk about equalization as well. And we'll even talk about some cool things like sidechain compression. So with that being said, I guess I will leave you all to enjoy the day off, and I will see you all next week.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Professor, I had a question, a personal question.